With October gone and Halloween in the rear view, it's time to move on to our next set of album reviews. I love this time of year. Ever since I was a little kid listening to Nat King Cole, I've always associated autumn with jazz music. So every November, I'm making it a tradition to review 4 jazz albums. This year, I have some good ones planned. Today, we'll begin with one of the darkest jazz albums I've ever had the pleasure of experiencing, Frank Sinatra's 1959 classic, No One Cares, a follow-up to his 1957 album, Where Are You? So join me as we dive into our review of Frank Sinatra's 1959 album, No One Cares. Now, there are a total of 11 songs, all arranged by Gordon Jenkins and conducted by the legendary Nelson Riddle. Number 1. When No One Cares.
When no one cares.
This album wastes no time setting the mood immediately within the first few seconds of the first track. Here we take another trip into Sinatra's psyche, picking up immediately where we left off 4 years prior at the end of the In the Wee Small Hours album, or even the Where Are You album. Settle in, folks, because we're headed down a dark road of pain, sorrow, isolation, reflection, and introspection. I give this one an 8 out of 10. Number 2, A Cottage for Sale. We continue down the road, 1 cigarette and 2 drinks in, and may I say, what a masterful performance here. Back in 2009, I downloaded Sinatra's entire discography from the Pirate Bay, and from that source, I initially heard a different version of this song, one that Sinatra performed in the beginning years of his career in the early 1940s, possibly with the Tommy Dorsey Orchestra, but I can't remember offhand. But I didn't really care for that version. Frank's voice hadn't matured yet, and the arrangement was very bland. But this version here is far superior in every way. You can feel the tension fully as Sinatra's voice lingers and glides between each lyric, sinking further and further into the shallow end of despair. Amazing work by Frank, as well as Maestro Gordon Jenkins, who conducted the highly talented orchestra. 9 out of 10. Number 3. Stormy Weather.
Keeps raining all the time.
Back when I was around 9 years old, I heard an alternate version of this song, also sung by Sinatra. I always liked that one, but when I heard this version, it instantly became my favorite of the two. The version I heard as a kid is really good too, but it has a slightly different feel to it, with backup singers, and was recorded in the early to mid-1940s, while this version is starkly melancholic in every way possible. It has possibly the darkest sounding intro that I've ever heard in a Sinatra song, with credit for that being attributed to the magnificent orchestra and conductor. Both versions are a good listen, but this one just weighs a little heavier on the soul. 9 out of 10. Number 4. Where Do You Go?
Where do you go?
Now, for some reason, the start of this song reminds me of the classic film Gone with the Wind. Personally, I don't particularly care for this song. It's not bad, I just don't feel any particular connection to it. Nothing more to say. 2 out of 10. Number 5. I Don't Stand a Ghost of a Chance with You.
I need your love.
Another great track here. I love everything about this song. What a beautiful arrangement, both vocally and instrumentally. The longing in Sinatra's voice tells the story of a man who comes to the realization that he can only admire the object of his affection from afar. Excellent job all around. 10 out of 10. Number 6. Here's That Rainy Day. Something about this song makes me think of the end of Godfather 3. In the final scene where Michael Corleone's life flashes before his eyes, displaying a montage of all the women he ever loved and lost right before he keels over in his chair while sitting outside his home in Sicily. Now, this song is what I imagine goes through his head just before that scene comes into play. Absolutely perfect. 9.5 out of 10. Number 7. I Can't Get Started.
I'm a glum one.
This song laments a man displaying frustration wrapped in a gentle sadness, as he describes being able to conquer every complicated scenario in the world except for winning the heart of the one he desires. Pretty good song, following the tone of the ones that came before. Not my favorite on the album, but still quite good. 8 out of 10. Number 8. Why Try to Change Me Now? I love this song. Those sweet opening notes lead into a daydream of sorrow. I can just see Sinatra sitting down at a bar, just like the one on the album cover, a couple drinks in, about to light up the first cigarette of his third pack of the day. Man, there's just something about this song that gives me the chills in all the right ways. It feels like this song is the auditory definition of what the definition of bittersweetness is, if that makes any sense. So much so that you can almost taste it. I give this one a 10 out of 10. Number 9, Just Friends.
Lovers no more.
Now my notes on this song are almost exactly identical to the previous one. These songs just make me feel so comfortably numb, excuse my phrasing. Not to be confused with a similarly titled and equally as great song, Can't We Be Friends, from the In the Wee Small Hours album from a few years prior. This one perfectly stands on its own. I give this one a 10 out of 10. We're down to the final 2 songs of the album. Number 10, I'll Never Smile Again.
I'll never.
We're on a roll with 3 absolutely spectacular songs in a row. Now this one, I'm very, very familiar with, as it's been one of my top 5 Sinatra songs since I was about 10 years old. My personal favorite rendition is the one that Frank recorded in the early 1940s in conjunction with Tommy Dorsey and his orchestra. That one has additional backing vocals from a soft female choir that intensifies the emotional response tenfold. Well, it did for me at least. I can remember crying when I first heard this song as a kid, and I had no idea why I was doing so. It's just that strong. Emotionally, it had that strong of an impact on me. I'm sorry, kind of lost words here. This version doesn't have the backing vocalist, but Sinatra more than makes up for it with his longingly expressive cadence and delivery of his vocal lines. It doesn't get much better than this, folks. There's a reason this man is considered the greatest singer of the 20th century. I give this one another 10 out of 10. And the final song of the album is called None But the Lonely Heart. Now, I don't know how to feel about this song ending the album. Just like with track number 4, Where Do You Go, I find myself rather indifferent to it. I don't think it's bad, just bland. I think the album could certainly do without it. At the very least, they could have switched places with I'll Never Smile Again, as that song is so perfect. Why wouldn't you use that as the album closer? I don't know who decided the order of the track list, whether it be Sinatra, Gordon Jenkins, Nelson Riddle, or Capitol Records themselves, but someone dropped the fucking ball by making this song the album closer and not the previous song. Nevertheless, it's okay for what it is. I give this one a 6 out of 10. Overall, this is a pretty damn good album. It's considered to be one of Sinatra's gloomiest, and honestly, I can see why. This LP, along with the 2 previous ones, 1957's Where Are You and 1955's In the Wee Small Hours, are considered to be the darkest trilogy of the man's career. But I'll stop short of saying anything further on the topic, as I plan on doing a video on that later. I'll just end this review by saying, this album, thematically, is a heavy one, and it's not for the faint of heart. But if you're willing to lend a listening ear to a man whose sorrow and regrets loom heavily over his every waking moment, you may find it not only cathartic for him, but also, in some way, for yourself as well. It's one of Old Blue Eye's greatest albums, and I definitely recommend it. Overall, I give this album a full 10 out of 10. And that's all for now, folks. I'd like to take the time to thank my editor for all his hard work, and to thank you all for your time as well. I sincerely appreciate it. I hope you all enjoyed this review, and I hope I've encouraged at least some of you to give this album a listen. It really and truly is one of Sinatra's very best. Join me next week as we continue November Jazz Month with our review of a hip-hop classic, The Low End Theory by A Tribe Called Quest. Until then, everyone, enjoy the autumn weather, be safe, and take care of yourselves and each other.